thanks very much for the introduction and the opportunity to be here today. Before I go into more of the sort of the calculation and reporting side of things, I just wanted to put things into context, because obviously we are talking about calculation and reporting because transport emissions, and particularly freight transport, contribute significantly to climate change overall. For the transport emissions, the statistics suggest that around between 25 and 33% of man-made greenhouse gas emissions are coming from transport as a whole, and it does really appear that the maybe I just need to hit my buttons harder to make it work. Yeah, so it's a significant contribution from transport as a whole, and then within that, logistics emissions are contributing at the moment around 1/3 of all transport emissions. So you can see that logistics is contributing around 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions, which is a really significant contribution, which I think is hidden from many people, because a lot of that long distance transport is happening out of sight. And then the other thing to be aware is that both of these numbers are actually increasing. So the contribution of transport is still increasing, in part because other sectors of the economy are beginning to see decarbonisation efforts bear fruit. But also the global economic growth in general, and the increasing length of global supply chains is meaning that logistics is actually contributing a greater proportion to the emissions from transport as a whole, and that means that actually there is an increasing scrutiny on freight transport and logistics from those who actually care about climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. So I think we can see that scrutiny coming on, much more pressure beginning to build on those who either purchase or supply freight transport solutions. In terms of where those emissions come from, a large proportion is coming from road transport. Around 45% of the freight transport total is longer distance road transport. Around 1/4 is coming from urban transportation, again, much of which is actually delivered by road transportation. Maritime sea transportation, around 1/6 of the total emissions. But if you actually think about how much in terms of ton kilometers is transported by global sea transportation, you actually get a feel for how, in greenhouse gas emission terms, from an emissions per ton kilometer perspective, sea transportation is actually relatively efficient compared to the other modes. And then you can see that there are smaller contributions from rail freight, air freight, and barge. But then looking at the totals hides again the relative emission efficiencies of some modes, and the relatively high emission intensity of air transportation, which is actually used only for relatively small amounts of high value goods. I'm not going to focus too much on emission reduction activities in this brief run through. It's just worth noting that for road freight transportation, the longer term focus is very much on electrification. Whereas for aviation and shipping, there is more of a focus on how you can clean up the liquid fuel market, and a lot of that is driven by the economics and availability of different options and where they are best suited. And in all of that, there's, I guess, a temptation to think about the the new solutions and try to keep everything exactly as is. But it's really important to also think about efficiency, the sort of optimization that we've been hearing about already, and modal shift, because the more you can do those more traditional activities in a clever way, the lower the need for some of the innovative energy sources. So it's really important to remember those aspects as well. Just a brief summary of who Smart Freight Centre are. We're a global not-for-profit organisation. We have a very, very tight focus on emissions within the global freight sector, looking at actually how we support ambitious reduction in that area. And we do that through three aspects. One is driving transparency and setting standards for calculation and reporting of freight transport emissions. One is looking actually for collaborative solutions where the industry players can come together either vertically or horizontally to look at ways to reduce emissions. And we're doing a lot of education, training, and other support work to scale up those solutions, and talking quite a lot to other NGOs and regulatory bodies about the sort of actions that they need to be taking. And we currently have in excess now of 170 members, covering a wide range of different activities within the supply chain. But increasingly, we're seeing large numbers of shippers, particularly bigger multinational shippers, paying attention to the topic, joining us, and interacting with most of the global logistics service providers now who are also already members. They've been probably proportionally better represented over the years, but it's interesting to see that that shift to a greater shipper membership. And the Global Logistics Emissions Council, or the GLEC, was effectively Smart Freight Centre's first member network. That's been around for 10 years now, around the same time as Smart Freight Centre. And that really does aim to bring together the organisations that are interested in widespread and transparent emission calculation reporting. This is the organisation that has really collaborated to set the methodology framework for that harmonised, efficient, transparent way for calculation and reporting of emissions. And that really feeds into this hierarchy of greenhouse gas standards that exist. At the top level, you've effectively got two different sets of accounting and reporting standards. You've got the greenhouse gas protocol, which focuses much more on sort of corporate reporting and is recognized by a lot, mainly by companies, with both a standard for companies to report their total greenhouse gas emissions, but also to look at the emissions within their value chain as well, which is where the concept of scopes, emission scopes, comes in. And the importance of actually understanding not only what you directly emit, but also your corporate partners and the people you buy products and services from. On the other hand, you have the ISO standards, which tend to be more technical, generally more focused, but even there you still have standards for overall corporate reporting, and then reporting for individual products, for example, and looking at life cycle. Those two sets of standards at the moment sort of sit parallel to each other. And so when you come down to look at what's happening and what applies to the transport sector, the GLEC framework has some sort of legitimacy given to it, because when we first produced it, we aligned it with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and it carries the Built on Greenhouse Gas Protocol mark. And for the transport sector within the ISO series, the ISO 14083, which I'll come back to, was published in 2023, and that gives you the very detailed technical guidance on what to do for transport emissions. And then below that, and something that we've been working on with our industry partners, is actually how you then apply those transport sector guidances into individual elements within the transport sector, because what we see is there's a significant influence of industry associations, companies coming together in those sectors, using their own terminology, and wanting something that they believe applies to them. So working to apply the individual guidances to each of these subsectors, and I think we're likely to see more of that specific development happening in the future. To give a bit more of a background about the development of the GLEC framework and the ISO standard. In that period between its first publication in 2016 and 2022, the GLEC framework was really the only globally recognized methodology for the calculation and reporting of greenhouse gas emissions, certainly in the freight transport sector. And we worked very hard to take it beyond just that built on greenhouse gas protocol mark into alignment with other global reporting standards and target setting methods such as CDP, science-based targets, but also pushing for its uptake from as many companies as possible, because the benefit from standards like this does come from more and more companies picking it up, talking the same language, and then pushing it through their supply chains. And also working with calculation tools. So I guess that's the integrators that we heard about in the last presentation. Those companies that again are providing services into the sector, and again working with them to standardize the approach as far as possible, such that there is confidence within the market that at least the methodology and the way that data is being manipulated for the calculations is being done in as standardized a way as possible. And of course that landscape changed with the production of ISO 14083, which, as I said previously, was published in March 2023. That within the ISO grouping gave much more specific guidance than was there previously, but it also helps us then to link more closely between the greenhouse gas protocol and the ISO standards, because you then have the GLEC framework as effectively the freight transportation core for both the global sets of standards. So the principles and methodology work that we've been working on up till then was very much established as a core element across both sets. And in terms of correlation between them, I think we still see the GLEC framework as that primary industry guideline to help the sector, to help it implement the ISO 14083 standard, and sit very much as a partner to that formal standard document. There are some subtle differences in that, for example, ISO 14083 does cover both freight and passenger transportation from the same principles. The GLEC framework gives us the opportunity to, as effectively the owners of it, to keep working on industry-led updates and prepare an understanding of the latest developments methodologically, and actually where scientific pressure comes through, so we can test developments for the future. Whereas with an ISO standard, effectively, once it's published, it's set in stone for 5 years. That gives us the opportunity to be ready, so that when that 5-year update comes round, if there is demand for it, we already have the solutions there to incorporate within the formal standard update. I think it's worth noting that the GLEC framework and ISO 14083 have this focus of the transport chain, which I think is obviously critically important to the logistics sector. The idea of the building from bottom up from the various elements that exist within that transport chain. That can feed through to understanding the emissions that come from the transport services that are bought and sold within the market, but it's also what provides you with the opportunity to build up into individual company inventories of their own actions. And that's really how you can look at both corporate reporting and service level reporting from that same bottom-up perspective. That's also something actually it's worth flagging. The European Counter Emissions EU initiative is being built on the ISO standard as its core reference point, and that is looking at a transport chain process, therefore, to give a reporting standard also at the European level for transport services. In terms of the boundaries for the calculation, we're looking at a full fuel cycle approach. So what's known as well to wake or well to wheel, depending on which part of the sector that you're in. Really important to understand the upstream emissions that come with production of fuels, particularly when you get to some of the new fuels, e-fuels, biofuels, electricity, to make sure that you don't push emissions to another part of the economy. All these at the moment are looking at solely greenhouse gas emissions, not just from production and combustion of emissions, but also emissions that come from refrigeration gases as well. We're looking at the moment only on the operational emissions, so steering away from maintenance, long-term storage of product and vehicle production, for example. But we know that there is pressure coming for some of these to be included in the future, and I think that's highly likely when that ISO 14083 comes back for update in 2028-29, that some of these aspects will be brought in. Key aspects to include are things like the empty running, repositioning of vehicles or containers within the overall logistics system, making sure that you consider handling and transfer equipment at ports and terminals, and also remembering that vehicles and vessels, they have auxiliary engines, so you've really got to make sure that you're covering all fuel and energy use for whatever purpose, to keep the cargo at a saleable or usable condition for the organization that has purchased that transport. We look at allocation by mass rather than volume as a common metric, but other alternatives can be reported in parallel. The calculation excludes offsets, but you know, it does give you the opportunity to understand what the residual emissions are, so that you could quantify actually what level of offset you wanted to buy in the future if you were looking at really completely neutralizing your emissions. A lot of what I've been talking about is around the methodology side of things, but actually I think there are key three calculation efforts. Whatever you do with the methodology, you also need to make sure that you've got good data. And I would also split the data into two separate aspects. You've got the data from the transportation companies about actually what the vehicle does in terms of its movements, the fuel it uses, how much cargo it's carrying, all the things that actually probably are very close to the heart of the sort of the FT side of things here. But also one key data element that quite often gets overlooked is the emission factor, because in any calculation you're really looking at how much energy you use and what are the emissions associated with that energy, a point that I'll come back to in a minute. But also the assurance. And again, we heard reference to the fact that electronic data transfer would need some form of certification, or words like verification, validation, all have very specific meanings within that assurance sector. And to give confidence to the market in terms of the calculation outputs that are being produced, a recognised assurance scheme is also really important. So just picking up on those topics very briefly, actually at the moment there is no formal standard for emission factors, and so this is something that as more and more focus is put on emission calculation results, so we need to make sure that that is addressed, and we are involved in a Horizon work programme project called Clever, which started 1st of June, which is actually looking at, again, pulling together the existing approaches for emission factors, and actually trying to tie together so that we take first steps towards a true harmonization and standardization of the emission factors. And the other aspect is assurance. This is something that we've been doing for some time, because although you've got standardization in terms of methodology, unless you've got some form of scheme that actually goes through that with a verified independent assessment with a properly targeted checklist, which looks at the calculation tools that are being used to make sure that, say, that they are consistent, but also the calculations that are reported by the companies, then again you lose confidence. And this is something that we've been developing. SFC's accreditation has been around for a while. We've relatively recently developed an independent assurance scheme, conformity assessment scheme, which works with auditors who we train, we check. They go out, they do the audits, and we work with them to give them to give effectively a stamp for the companies that sign up to that scheme. So that conformity assessment scheme is something that we're now looking to push, because we really believe that there's a market need for it. And my final slide, and I think one of the things that really is important as to why there's a market need, is that there's a much stronger link through between greenhouse gas calculation reporting and corporate finance now, and financial standards that are looking at climate impacts as well. We're seeing quite a few of our bigger multinational members now pulling together their internal teams that are responsible for greenhouse gas calculation and reporting into their finance team, so that it becomes more seamless, and it's much more easy to actually tie together those two aspects and to put a value on carbon. And then linking to that, we're then seeing corporate standards coming out of the finance sector, which then look to link together again finance with greenhouse gases and corporate carbon reporting. We're seeing new standards and bodies coming, such as those that are referenced on this final slide. And one of the key challenges for us going forward is to make sure that they then don't try to reinvent the wheel again, but understand actually what's already done, what's ready from the existing standards, and to use those in what they do. So it's a new set of conversations to be had there from us as well. So thanks very much for your attention.
presentation today will be about EFTI regulation and also briefly about our project. So maybe we can move forward with this. What is EFTI regulation? This short, the EFTI is from short Electronic Trade Transport Information Regulation, and it states that in 2027, European Union's member states, more specifically competent authorities of the member states, are required to accept electronic transport documents, and the obligation goes to member states at first and not towards economic operators. So the economic operators, they have a voluntary option to move towards digitalization, and the obligation lies in member states. And why is that done so? Is that many economic operators already today would like to go digital, but when the European Commission started to see where the problem is, why there are still like over 90% of documents are on paper, they discovered that the problem lies on competent authorities of member states who still require paper documents. And because the system is not working, they started to tackle this problem from the member state side. Maybe we can move forward. So the objectives of EFTI are that, as I mentioned, the public authorities will be accepting a digital form of documents, and we are not talking about only road transportation, but all transport modes. And to do that, the uniform implementation requirements will be put in place. So every country have the same rules how to do that, and also there will be no new requirements put in place. The ones that are now put into the law will be still remaining. It will be only then do it in a digital form. So if we move forward. So the key elements of EFTI are that, as I mentioned, the national and EU legislation will stay the same. There will be no new like rules or obligation for operators. The obligation will be on competent authorities, and it will be optional for economic operators. And the very good part of it is that the requirements will be common across the Europe for both service providers and EFTI platforms. And also the big part will be that one-stop shop. and the wider idea is that when the operators have provided some information in digital form, the member state could and the authorities can use the same information in other parts of reports or requirements if they wish to do so. So it would be very beneficial for businesses to have less workload on filling in their reports and papers. So if we move forward, EFTI architecture has three components. One is EFTI platform, which is private sector operating operation and platforms. These EFTI platforms will have unified requirements, what they should do, how they should function, and all these EFTI platforms will be certified across Europe. This could be based on existing systems, and could be also something completely new. But this is completely private sector who will take care of these EFTI platforms. And the idea is that EFTI platform needs to be certified just once. And if it is certified, then it can have services across Europe. For example, if the platform is certified in Finland, it can provide service also in Spain, Portugal, and Cyprus, and it doesn't have to be certified again in the next member state. So then the next layer that I will be maybe talking more, the EFTI-gate. And then can you put the next slide, please? This is completely responsibility of each member state. Most member states that I have been talking to are seeing that EFTI-gate will be public sector service. It will be set up in every member state, and there will be like circle of trust, so to say, of EFTI-gates, which will be in one hand connected to EFTI platforms who provide the digital document services for private sector, and from the other side, it will be connected to competent authorities systems, and on top of that, they will have connections with each other. So the idea is that, for example, if a truck from Estonia is driving in Spain, and the authority officer in Spain sees the truck, then they make this inquiry to their own EFTI-gate, Spanish EFTI-gate. And if they don't have, Spanish EFTI-gate don't have information about this vehicle, they will start the search across the EFTI-gate environment and to ask if anybody knows information about these documents on this truck. And for example, then Estonian EFTI-gate says have the match, and then Spanish EFTI-gate can have the information through Estonian EFTI-gate from the platform that is connected to Estonian EFTI-gate. So this makes this more simple system, and it doesn't, the EFTI platform needs to be connected only to one EFTI-gate. So this system will be put in place and will function in 2027. And the third layer will be the competent authorities access point. Can you put the next slide, please? So this will be the platform that is used by the authorities who needs to access the data, and that will be also connected to EFTI-gate. So the officers who are carrying out the controls, they can use their own systems that they are used to use, and they can access the information through their own system via EFTI platform, EFTI-gate to EFTI platform. So this kind of three-layered, yes, you can put the next one. And what is the aim? There will be two options. You can see this on the picture here, that officer can use their own device. Then they can enter the truck registration number and have the information, if there is digital documents on board, then they can access those. And the other option is that they can also scan the QR code. We are, of course, in Estonia and the Baltic states, we mainly are hoping to have this first option available, because then you can put the next slide. You can carry out also remote controls. It would save a lot of time for businesses, because if you can carry out remote controls, of course, the obligation is that you have to see the truck. You can't do it just randomly, but you can do it also remotely or driving behind the truck. It would save a lot of time, because then you don't need to stop the vehicle, and you can save like at least half an hour, sometimes even more. We carried out this as a pilot project also in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland a couple of years ago, and it proved to be very, very successful. And our authorities really loved this system and said that they would like to use it already today. But then maybe can we move forward here? If I say that this system doesn't exist yet, this is a FT timeline. As I mentioned, 2027, we need to be ready for this. Different delegated and implementing acts are now being put in place, and then we will be ready to do that. But to be ready, please, next slide. We have established EFTI4EU project, as Inga already mentioned. This is CEST-funded project. We have 9 member states as partners and 3 as observers. And we are tackling this FT gate part of this schema. Please put the next slide. The budget of this project is more than 28 million euros, and we have quite many partners, both private and public sector. I will not stop here much, maybe. And the main goal is to first to encourage both these 9 member states to work together, but also the private sector part. We would like to see more digitalized approach to freight transport documentation, and also like to with this reduce this administrative expenses, and to more communication regarding this, as we're doing today. Next slide, please. And the activities that we are doing during the project are, we are establishing national roadmaps how to reach this goal of FT exchange environment. This is already done, actually. We will publish the results later this year. We will create FT-gate specifications because even the regulation establishes the main objectives and rules how to do that. During this project, we would like to, and we will do the more precise specifications, so even the member states who are not part of this project will benefit for our findings and can more easily establish their own FT-gates. And we will do this open source reference implementation also, that is beneficial for everybody. And we are also doing pilots to test all aspects of the FT-gate and FT environment, and of course communication on FT. Please move forward. Just short of time, it's a very interesting topic. Maybe we can skip this one, how the project works. So the benefits, as I mentioned before, especially when we could do remote controls, it will fasten the processing times quite significantly. The time that is the freight is on moving from one country to another will be more predictable. Also, it will make much more easier for the economic operators to to do their operations and also save time on administrative burden. Let's move forward. And for competent authorities, as I mentioned, the controls will be easier. They can only see the information that they are required. Maybe for one benefit also for businesses also will be that they are sure that only the information that are required, and on paper officials can see all the information. I don't think they will do anything bad with it at the moment, but then they can only see the certain amount of information that are required. So it will be very much quicker also, and also the transparency will be better when we use the digital format of documentations. And we are not talking about PDF, we are talking about data exchange. Can move on. And certification bodies, of course, as I mentioned, the EFTI platforms will be certified and it will be done just once. They don't have to do it all over again in every country. So it will be also very good. And also in later phases, probably all the statistics will be more precise and accurate. And this will be good also for planning purposes on the countries. And I think I have just a couple of slides. This is our expert team who is running this project together with us, and also a couple of more. This is also our team, member states and other partners. And this last one, this you can scan our webpage and LinkedIn account. We are a very good communication team, so you will hear more about us if you are following us. And the last one probably is the thank you slide.
My presentation is focusing mainly on the marketplace concept what we have in our project, and I would first like to have a kind of a motivation and contextualization that why this kind of marketplace is one of the expected solutions in the future when we want to increase the awareness of Scope 3 emissions, and of course we want to decrease them. So that's the first thing. So if I can have the next slide, please. So as a kind of a motivation and justification for our project is that, of course, we all know that transport sector is one of the hard to abate sectors, that there are significant amount of fossil fuels embedded in these transportation systems, and of course depending on different modes of transportation. But as the recent report showed, that there is a significant potential, and there are various complexities and even national level things, policies and so on, affecting how rapidly the costs are decreasing. So what we approach this is that the Scope 3 emissions, that's one of the leverage point of this kind of to steer the buying power towards having a green transportation alternatives. And I will show slightly later the one of the picture which tells quite a lot, but basically the past has been that despite we have a sustainable supply chain management practices already for 20 odd years, the transparency to the Scope 3 emissions has not been sufficient when we have started to receive the figures out of that. And of course, not all Scope 3 emissions are caused by the transportation services, but depending on the sector, it can be a significant amount of the Scope 3 emissions, how much freight transportation is causing. And there have been various challenges what has been as obstacles on the way, and now we hope that now we have the momentum to fix this and expand like the ownership of these emissions caused by transportation. And of course, one of the vital elements in this is that we need this kind of top-down steering from regulation and policy frameworks to push forward this change. So next, please. So here is a very simplified illustration that what was done with our colleague Laura Kojo in her master's thesis. So she interviewed a lot of cargo buyers and logistics service providers, and this is the summary illustration that how the practices have been. This is like a year and a half ago, the current state. So basically, we have two layers on this. One is the procurement, when the industrial company or some client of logistics service providers, when they are procuring the transportation services. So the results demonstrate that the KPIs what they are using, they are monetary values and of course the operational elements. And the conclusion was that the cheapest will get will be nominated. And then the next layer is the reporting of this when the transportation has already happened. So basically, at that time, like a year and a half ago, there was no agreed standard or calculation method available. So it was very fragmented information how this reports of the fulfillment comes to the client, and it was pretty much impossible to compare these figures. And then what we have done is that this desired stage has been then illustrated here, that of course now when we have the announcement of this ISO 14083 and the CLEC framework methodology, so we have the standard issue has been fixed, and of course we need to have, in addition to the reporting, we have to have this in the procurement phase as well, that we have the emissions there as well. Of course, nobody expects that the most greenest will be awarded if they are more expensive, but it has to be some kind of balanced procurement strategies in the future, so that the buying power will start to steer towards greener options. So next, please. And now, as you saw in the previous picture, that there are various data flows moving back and forth, and the question is, of course, what is the quality of the data and who owns the data and so on. So what we approach in ADMIRAL project is that we have this kind of marketplace concept, what you will hear more into details in later stage from Awake. But these kind of digital platforms, of course, we all know that they exist, and now there are more also coming for the logistics sectors. But this definitely have a potential to act as a data sharing platforms, and also increasing the transparency to the emissions and so on. So it will be huge challenge to think that you have so many different silos, that how different nodes are sharing data. So this kind of marketplace could act kind of neutrally in between. So next, please. And of course, this sounds good, but it's easier said than done. So what we are having in this project as an aim that we do also rigorous research, which can support the further research and further implementation of marketplaces. So we have identified firstly the main functionality needs for this type of marketplace. So it also it is already a challenge because you have to have routings and you have to have control access and data privacy, of course. Then you have to have a certain amount of service providers and of course cargo buyers, which are the most important, and all supporting actions. And one of the reasons, of course, it's quite obvious that there are many obstacles in the way, and it depends that what size of the company is. That the large industrial companies, they already have their significant data infrastructures in place. So when this kind of marketplace would come, you would need to consider the integration to the existing ERPs and transport management systems. And then, of course, this kind of ecosystem and pricing model issues are very, very important. And one of the main concerns what has been raised is that it cannot be a tool for benchmarking just from the competition side. So it has to have some kind of restrictions there while being quite open system, but still it has to provide certainty that it will not be used in a way it should not be used. So next, please. So that was in a nutshell. So about the background and motivation when we started to prepare for the ADMIRAL project, and we have a very dedicated and good team spreading around Europe. So you can see from the picture what organizations we have, and then we have 4 pilot sites which are supporting the emission reduction as a standalone cases, but also they will be one way or another integrated also to the marketplace concept. So here are also the pilot sites mentioned, but I will not go into details because we have focus on the marketplace. But that's a very significant, spreading around different EU countries. So next, please. What we have as key features in our project is that, of course, I mentioned that it's this digital marketplace, and we want to really tackle this issue that we move forward this desired state. What I showed in previous slides, that it's possible also for the SME level companies to have good quality information about the Scope 3 emissions also in the procurement phase, and that's something that can have a potential to steer without significant physical investments towards greener transportation, when the transportation companies know that whenever they have invested for something greener, they can have a competitive advantage, and it's visible also for their clients. And next, please. And here we have gathered the expected impacts, and the figure what I show and on the right side, that will be presented. I think few presentations. Then it will be presented. So I will not go into that, but we want to have a validated multimodal marketplace, and then also it's important that we trace in our pilot cases these kind of low-hanging fruits that will will have potential to decrease emissions just by optimizing them with AI solutions or thinking more beyond the silos and so on. So there are a lot of these still existing in European Union, and then we expect something like 20% emission reduction in these cases, which will be then demonstrated by using digital. And this is the importance that we have this digital, how digitalization correlates with the emission reduction. So there are quite clear linkages in many cases. And the enhanced stakeholder cooperation and visibility is, of course, highly important, especially with the buyers and sellers of logistic services. And while we are having more tools on the calculation of the fulfillment of Scope 3 emissions, there's still a lot potential, a lot to do in the procurement. So that's something we focus on. And then, of course, one thing we want to investigate is that what kind of business models and so on would support this kind of thing, because we need to have a business cases as well, not only to have some kind of a high profile idea, but it has to be also some kind of practical business models. So those are what we are investigating and trying to then conclude. And next, please. So that was my brief introduction, and as I said, we will have more in-depth presentations coming. So thanks a lot from my side.
It's great to see so many people interested in digitalizing transport, and these online seminars, they still feel a little bit weird. Here I am sitting alone in my room, but I see a small number that there's 127 people listening to this. So here's it's a very nice intro to the digital mobility, and a pleasure to have you all. So I will try to bring perspective from both of the projects, while they are very different and they are addressing completely different authorities from the first glance, but both of the projects are trying to solve exact same challenge. To make an impact, we need to achieve scale. We need to have everyone on board. If we have just authorities on EFTI ecosystem, they will not be inspecting any data, there will not be data. And in the multimodal marketplace, if we do not have a critical mass of economic operators and companies participating, making orders, providing service, it will not have the desired impact on reducing CO2 emissions. We could save at least 10% of CO2 quite easily just by reducing empty miles. But for that, we need to have a truck somewhere nearby, and we need to have a client who uses this marketplace and chooses a vehicle that is nearby rather than vehicle that is 50 kilometers away. So today I'll try to give a little bit of background how we are moving towards this common goal and what initiatives are supporting this mass scale adoption of transport digitalization. So yes, the next slide, please. So we have policies that are in place and have been in place for quite a while now. So we have the Green Deal that has initially caused some waves, but now we are on board and progressing with it. We have Europe, that Fit for the Digital Age, that not only outlines requirements or expectations for transport, which is smart and innovative transport that makes use of automation and is supported by adequate funding, which sounds excellent, but it also has European values, which is economy that works for people, stronger European world, and promoting a European way of life. And what's a European way of life in digital transport? I will try to share some of the anecdotes from how we are trying to achieve this in projects, and what benefits and challenges we have from being 27 member states, each still with a very individual national character and some very individual aspects how we are organizing and governing transport. Next slide, please. Yes, so it's all beautiful on paper. It's even more beautiful on the PowerPoints that are seeing and we are sharing. And if you have been following some of these initiatives for quite some few years now, the very natural question will be, how are we not there yet? We have been talking about it for years. We have funding for research innovation. We have excellent expert groups in place, for example, Digital Transport and Logistics Forum that has some of our brightest transport people discussing the issues and looking for common solutions. We have these initiatives to digitalize electronic freight transport information, which is what EFTI stands for. We have Maritime Single Window. We have this beautiful pioneer system for the customs information exchange, which is beautiful because it's first of its kind in transport to create something for all 27 member states. And it continues growing. We have enforcement digitalization, which will be a single European digital enforcement area one day. We have EUCARIS, which is a bottom-up initiative where member states are cooperating to exchange information on vehicles. At the moment, there's 10 of them, and it's unique in this aspect. We have also support in form of EU building blocks, which are already ready pieces of code or ready solutions that allow more efficient and secure data exchange, and that different initiatives may access and use for their solutions. So like it looks like everything is in place. We have initiative to cover pretty much all areas of transport. We even have some plug and play tools ready. And on the other side, we also have business digitalizing and working towards improving efficiency even more. So we have very advanced telematics and transport management systems that are able to track vehicle with accuracy of few meters and to be able to tell fuel consumption in all the different conditions and to find the most optimal way how to drive this vehicle, which route to choose. We now have in the past few years really incredible progress with calculating CO2 and aligning how we do that thanks to GLEC framework that is accessible for free for everyone to learn and to adopt in their organization. And it's a business initiative that laid foundation for ISO that also defines how CO2 can be calculated. We have collaboration initiatives for multimodal and intermodal that keep getting stronger. And as one of the questions was from the audience, can we make some railway routes mandatory? Yes, maybe one day we can make them mandatory if we enable everyone to exchange information in an efficient manner. We have business-to-business information exchanges. We have like networks such as PEPL. We have BDI network for exchanging inland waterway information. So we have digital logistics platforms, some of which have focused on business and allowing clients to discover service providers. Others, such as ADMIRAL, that is being developed, will have focused on a bit greener alternatives. So why haven't we moved beyond the PowerPoints yet? And we are still talking about something that is just beyond the corner. Next slide, please. Even if we have like this beautiful shared interest and benefits for both sides, what we can get from digitalizing transport data, and by digitalizing, it means that it needs to be machine readable, because just a digital document that is a scanned PDF, it will not bring any change. But if we have digitalized data, then both sides are benefiting. And as Eva already spoke about it, so I will not go into a lot of detail, but digitalization can improve and simplify compliance. So as 27 member states, we still have significant differences in legislation, and it is very much reflected in needs that were submitted to the European Commission at start of implementation of EFTI, which resulted in 177 different data sets that are reflecting national requirements, how each member state is controlling transport. Why it was a huge challenge? So as countries, we have legal requirements which say that operator must be able to prove this and that. But there's no ChatGPT that is able to take this sentence and translate it into a few pieces of data, what needs to be provided to make sure that the economic operator is actually compliant. So there are humans looking at these requirements and trying to translate them. What does it mean in data? So it still results in these 177 different data sets and more than 20,000 different statuses that occur in certain conditions. So that was much more difficult than initially anticipated, and this effort took years. And when translators took these data sets and tried translating them back to national languages, it resulted in even further effort to harmonize and to understand if it's a case that we are calling exact same thing, different names. And yes, it was the case. So EFTI shows us how difficult it is to translate legal requirements into technical requirements, as technical language and legal language, they are not even sisters and maybe not even cousins, but neighbors in best case scenario. When something is mandatory in legal language, it means that, for example, as an economic operator, if it's mandatory to provide information in a certain field, then it means that you must submit some data and you must be compliant with that data. While in technical language, a mandatory field might mean that it's just a field that needs to be filled in, because otherwise you would not be able to close some administrative form. So it's a very curious challenge that is pretty difficult to resolve, as EFTI is first of its kind. And we see some of similar things in ADMIRAL as well, that while it seems easy to exchange data on transport, like how hard can it be? You have a destination, you have some freight, you have one of those few trucks, so it's just few pieces of data. It's not that difficult, but it is difficult. Can I have the next slide, please? We have to resolve this challenge. How do we exchange data? Do we wait for all the operators to adopt these beautiful transport management systems that have all the digital data, and then we provide some infrastructure layer where everyone just uses an API and very quickly and painlessly exchanges the existing data? Or is it the opposite? Do we create infrastructure for data exchange first, and then we are waiting for all the expected participants to digitalize their data and start using the infrastructure? So it's the equivalent of chicken and an egg, but in digital transport environment. And the other challenge that is solved by ADMIRAL, or where we are focusing a lot of our research on, and will be very relevant in 2029 for EFTI, is how do we onboard SMEs on these platforms? So what has been done is quite and still is ongoing research and discussions with SMEs, with transport SMEs, not just SMEs. What is it that would attract you to digital logistics platforms and encourage you to use them? So I'll share some of our research results, and because we are almost at a coffee break, I will go through them a little bit more quickly, but you will be able to view them at your own pace at a later stage. So in ADMIRAL, we have two groups of transport companies. One is cargo owners, or those who are ordering transport service, and the other side is freight forwarders, transport service providers who are providing transport service. So we spoke to all of them, like, what is it that you expect or you need from the platform? So everyone has high expectations for other marketplace participants, that they will have good quality data, that they will have good responsive systems, that there will be no delays in exchanging data, that it will be pretty much real time, and the other participants are engaged, they are using this platform, they do not have option B and C, but they are committing. And transparency and security is also among key priorities, and for some players it's the key priority, because transport is a very competitive environment. And transport data may disclose, especially in smaller markets or in areas where there are fewer companies, who are your clients. It's not very difficult to guess if you are traveling between cities and there's just a single company in a particular industry, who are your clients, and maybe trying to provide a more competitive offer. So making sure that the platform is transparent and that you can trust it is of critical importance. There are data sharing barriers due to presence of legacy systems or even modern systems, but if they were developed without considering then that one day they might have to collaborate with other platforms and exchange data, then these features might not be in place, and we might need integrator features such as only one's technical system or e-delivery might provide. So that's an opportunity for those. And one challenge both for EFTI and for any digital logistics platform is governance. Like, who is the owner, who is responsible, who is supporting the members, how this authority or how this owner is funded. And the funding mechanism is also part of transparency and trust. If it's a business-driven relationship, or if it's more collaborative effort where everyone is paying a membership fee, it might be different case by case, but it also contributes to the trust. So lack of models that have been proven to work in practice is one of the barriers that was also quite often listed. And of course, we have investment, especially for very small transport SMEs that maybe have a few trucks and have been operating pretty much without any digital solutions, maybe WhatsApp. They would have to adopt some solution and possibly purchase devices. So again, it's an investment in a market where already margins are not that high. May I have the next slide, please? But it's not only barriers, there are also drivers. So in case of ADMIRAL, Corporate Social Responsibility Reporting Directive and scope-free emission reporting requirements are strong barrier to be strong driver to be interested in platforms and service they might be providing in regards to calculating and saving CO2. And clients are pushing their service providers to be greener or to show effort. So it's a value that is needed from a whole supply chain. So it goes all the way from the bottom to the smallest of suppliers. And it's the same for both cargo owners and for service providers, that compliance with regulatory requirements or with pressure from society will push transport service providers towards digitalization. And also there are expectations that being greener or complying when even it's not mandatory yet may open access to new clients, may open access to new markets, or may provide opportunities to creating new higher value added services and remaining competitive in this quite tough market, which is especially relevant for road transport companies that at the moment are pressured quite a bit to improve their service and to start collaborating in multimodal and intermodal. So that is the last slide. We can go into the last one. Yes, so hopefully you have heard something new today, and will have some new ideas to contemplate and consider what motivates you or what is preventing you from participating.
My name is Lasse Nykänen and I work for a Veriafy company, but at the same time I'm also working for EFTI Experts and be part of this EE team, EFTI Expert team that Eva already mentioned there in the beginning. And yeah, I have been working with these kind of logistics digitalization projects already a long time, and it's nice to see that now we are going on more concrete world. I thought that Eva's slides had good title there, Beyond the PowerPoints, and this is exactly where we should go. And in my presentation, I try to now highlight more from the EFTI point of view what this could mean for economic operators, for the private sector. I will also tell a little bit about the EFTI itself, but mostly highlighting those economic operator side. Next slide, please. Yeah, and as I said, I'm representing also this EFTI4EU project. There I have kindly like dual role. I am a consultant for Finnish authorities, but at the same time also part of this EE team, which is making this horizontal coordination for the whole project. EFTI4EU project was launched already last year, and I'm happy to also announce that now we have other EFTI project all going, EFTI4All, and it's interesting to get also this new project because it will increase those member states who are now integrating EFTI system. But also EFTI4All project is now bringing economic operators in EFTI development, which is very vital thing when we are looking how to make this live. And at the same time, I need to also say that now just this week, CEF was launching a new call, so maybe there will be EFTI4Universe or Galaxy or whatever, let's see. And if you are interested, of course, you can contact also us. Yeah, next slide. Very shortly, Eva already told us what is EFTI, but like, yeah, just to repeat, it's now mandatory for authorities. So it seems now that it will go in mid 2027 when the system should be up and running, and it's mandatory for authorities so that they are able to get this electronic freight information on their EFTI systems. And for that, they will use EFTI platforms in economic operator side and EFTI gates in authority sides. However, from economic operator point of view, we need to also consider that this is kind of enabler so that after that day, authorities are forced to be able to utilize also digital format. So this is good to remember. And so this is kind of enabler legislation. EFTI is not solving everything. It's one piece in this big puzzle, like what we saw in Eva's presentation, for example, that there are many things happening at the same time. But now this is something that is opening the door for digital data exchange between economic operators and authorities. Next slide. And then very simple illustration about EFTI architecture. My colleague Rudi Hemlers, one of our EFTI expert team, has drawn this first time. I made some iterations, but here is in a nutshell, what is EFTI? EFTI gate is for authorities. So this is the authority system that they will operate and they will run on their premises. How they will do that, it's up to a member state how they will organize that. But anyway, FTGate is the authority system, and it includes this authority access point, and beyond that, then we have the competent authorities. Those are, for example, police. And yeah, there we have those 7 EU legislations that are coming from are behind or are connected to the FT regulations, and plus that there are those 175 national legislations that are included there also. But then on the economic operator side, we have these FT platforms, and currently Commission and member states are working with that legislation or regulation, how that will go, what kind of requirements we have for those, and there will be certification for FT platforms, and those are now on the hands of Commission and member states. And how FT platforms then will be organized, there are many ways also for that. I will have a little bit more about that in next slides, but like it can be embedded on your ERP systems, or it can be third-party service. This is still something that we are studying also, for example, in this EFTI4EU project, how that can be handled, how that can be operated, what are the pros and cons of different solutions and all that. If you click next. Yes, and then FTGate, there was question already about this unique identifier registry. Those are, for example, register plate, and those are kind of like code how we can find this exact transportation. So those are kind of like identifiers for that. Then we are talking about this AS4 interface. If you click next one, comes a little bit more. It's part of this e-delivery exchange environment. And this is mandatory for member states that they will use this e-delivery between gate-to-gate communication, but also member states needs to establish this also for platform-to-gate communication. But, and this is now big but, member states can also enable REST API for platforms. If we click next one. And then, yeah, then you see the whole picture, how this could happen. Let's say, for example, between Lithuania and Finland, on Lithuania and Estonia, whatever. But authorities are handling this, how gate-to-gate communication is ongoing. If you click next. And for FTGates and for FT platforms, there are own implementing act and delegated act. And now that implementing act and delegated act for FTGates are published in Have Your Say portal, and final like approval of those is coming some of these months. We are now expecting, we as a FT believers, like hopefully very soon, but there. Yeah, let's see when this comes. But it's those are now published, and those FT platform side, those are now still on the authority side on process. If you click next. And this is now FT regulation. So this is inside the regulation. But if you click one more, then this is the part that we don't know yet, or we have some maybe ideas about this. It's about this FT platform to FT platform communication. Eva had also in those big slides, this one bullet point was business to business communication. And FT platform to platform can be one opportunity for that. FT will provide a standard for us. So why not use this kind of EU-wide standard, which is mandatory for authorities? It's a good solution. So let's see what comes. Next slide. And currently, what we know is this authority side. EFTI4EU project, for example, is focusing mostly on this authority side. How authorities will build this system? What are their requirements for the system? But this economic operator side is still, it's under the sea yet, or still, and we need to study that. We need to engage those economic operators also in this development, so that they can integrate FT and FT solutions in their own business processes, on their own processes. But currently, we don't have that much information. We will have pilots in both of these projects. So those are one way how we can study a little bit what is ongoing and how we could do and all that. But I can encourage all the economic operators to participate. Contact your member state, your authorities who are engaged of FT development and ask when you will have this kind of FT available for testing or what kind of pilots you are planning and all that. Next slide. So FT dataset is set by legislation, but if we consider how the business-to-business communication could work, we could add there more data also that we are using only the business-to-business communication. This is now something that we go beyond the FT regulation, but for business-to-business, we can use that. We can enrich data sets. We can add there, for example, emission or energy consumption information. And then we have already quite good asset for the emission calculations. One aspect is also this indirect costs. So for example, in this Combined Transport Directive, there is this mentions that how to calculate indirect costs. This is maybe some of those features that FT platforms need to handle, but those are still like on a planning stage. Next slide. Then, as I said, economic operators should see FT as an enabler. It's opening the door for authority communication that we can use digital solutions. But it is also quite strong guidance because it's standardized. The data sets are standardized. So it's quite good guidance also what we need to fulfill. And let's plan our future solutions so that this standard give us a kind of foundation and we can build something above that. And on the other hand, also we can consider so that now when FT comes, this is the only way for the business to authority communication. So it's also in that sense, it's giving quite good, or it's guiding us on that exact path how we need to develop if we want to utilize digital solutions. If we go next slide, there comes now like the biggest thing is that those cost savings that we can achieve with digital solutions, those are huge. Those are very big ones. But of course, this is not like you can't change your processes and your collaboration in overnight. You need there a lot of time. You need to pilot. You need to plan how you do this transformation. But based on the studies, for one document, it can be less than 10 euros. And when we are calculating, or when they have calculated this kind of like studies, they are looking like all costs that are related on the process. So there are errors. If somebody needs to fulfill those information manually on the next computer or from PDF to the screen, it takes time. And 2024, we have solutions which can do that already on the data level also. Next slide. And so just to repeat for the economic operator point, we can go after FT for full digital solutions. So authorities are not bottleneck anymore, they are enabler. With digital solutions, we can make our processes faster. They are more transparent. And what is big thing is that data is accessible. So you can make access on the data without seeing the transportation. So we can provide information for those stakeholders who need that information. And also there are already good solutions how we can make this secure. This has been one of the big things that like economic operators have been thinking that is this secure? Can we access data? But if we, for example, benchmark on the finance industry, I think the digital solutions are the most safest ones. And same applies also in logistics. We can do that. One thing that economic operators needs to do is that they need to invest or they need to plan how they will make this kind of digital transformation. Currently, many of the operators, they don't have like test environments for digital solutions. They might have maybe bought some third-party service, and it's the same version that they are using in production. And when we are looking this kind of bigger transformations that needs to be done, it's good that we have also on the digital like environment some kind of test environments where we can test different fields or different data sets or different kind of processes. Otherwise, it might be quite clumsy for our everyday business. Next slide. Then I took this slide. I was also beneficiary in federated project, and I think this is one of the very important like slides, and we need to understand also this like bigger change that is happening here. So yes, we are using many digital solutions already in logistics, but quite often those are tailored for between two or three like stakeholders, and we should use more standard solutions, and we should seek this kind of network approach. In this illustration, there is kind of timeline. I think maybe Henk Mulder from IATA made this slide. Back in the days, 1980, we were using papers. Unfortunately, we are still using quite much paper in logistics, but then in 2000 we started to use these EDI messages, which was helping, and it enabled some kind of automation also for the data exchange. Now where we are living now in 2020, we are living this API era, so solutions have their own API. Lack of this is that we are not using standard, so that's why we need to make always these APIs again and again and again. Big ones, of course, big logistics companies, they can say that this is the one and only API, please use this. But as we know, we have also small and medium-sized companies which needs to be very agile if they want to do that. And also if we have like this kind of different APIs, like library of different kind of APIs, it will need resources. You need some IT development power if you want to make integrations for all of those. But then this 2000, let's say it comes 2030, like I said here, it's this kind of like a data space approach. We all know that Commission is now working very hardly with this. There was question about this interoperability framework. They are all pushing us on that direction. They're like the highest level of this is that we achieve this kind of semantic internet where we have all same kind of semantics for our data so that we can really pull and push data from our own premises. This same approach is actually the cornerstone of EFTI also. Data stays as a source, so you can update your own data and you can provide access for that. But without this kind of semantic interoperability, it's not that workable, so we need to work with that. And also this other like data space approach, we need to find also the business business demand for that. Why we are using those? I think it will come when we have enough power, enough volumes on those solutions. Then we have also like the business case there. If you click one more. This illustration is made by me. This is not from the Commission, but this was one of our Finnish pilot projects where we were studying a little bit already how these kind of different EFTI platform solutions could happen. I mentioned for you that now there is discussions that is it third-party solution, this EFTI platform, or is it embedded on the ERP system? How happens this EFTI platform to EFTI platform communications? These are all still speculations from my point of view. We need to study how that is feasible for the business and what we can do. But as you can see from this illustration, there might be many different ways how we will organize this EFTI platform. What is the final EFTI platform that will communicate with the EFTI gate? Will one kind of master EFTI platform collect information from other EFTI platforms, or are those other just some TMS solutions, or what else? What other those are? But like EFTI platform needs certification and it will be connected to the EFTI gate. That's for sure. But what happens under that? What happens under the hood? That's still a mystery for us. And then please join our you can go on the next. Please join our stakeholder community. And now I think that many member states, they are, so those who are already participating on the projects, I think they are already quite active on this kind of communication also, but we still have many EU countries which has not even started FT work. So I think they have quite critical path already. So they need to start that very soon if they want to be up and running with their authority solution in 2000, let's say summer 2027. We don't have that much time anymore for that. And also this dialect between authorities and economic operators needs to be activated so that also economic operators have enough time to adapt, to understand what is FT and how they can use that. That's all from my side.
I'm Simo Salminen, VP of the product and one of the co-founders at Awake.ai. So we are Finnish, 6-year-old Finnish startup working in the digital, let's say, planning and optimization solutions for maritime ports and shipping lines. And yes, with the ADMIRAL taking more of a leap into the land side also and the full logistics. Next one. Thank you. So this is the picture diagram we use to give a sort of a big overview picture, and Harri Pyykko from VTT a little bit teased this one. So I have to go through this one now. So in the middle we have the marketplace, and we actually have a port services marketplace. This already exists. So now it was another project we did, and we, let's say, trial the marketplace in the maritime port environments, and the keyword is also the services. So we focus on services and maybe later add physical products, but the services is a key focus. And in the EU-funded ADMIRAL, we will focus now a lot on supporting cargo transport services, and then of course other things around it, which I will get to. So we have, this is like a business to business multi-sided marketplace. So we have the sellers and buyers are in the, let's say, in the hot center. They are the key stakeholders, and we need, as a marketplace, we need a balance of each one of these sides, and then the marketplace operator at the top, that would be kind of like Awake.ai, so technical operator, not so much buying and selling things in the marketplace, but technical operator of the marketplace and developer of it. And then you also see in the middle, at the bottom of the middle green part, there's the developers and integrators. So this is an important story for the ADMIRAL marketplace, to open it immediately to other developers to integrate the marketplace. Like Harri also mentioned, we think big and medium-sized companies already have quite extensive logistics systems and other IT solutions where this could be integrated, especially for that the buying side, the purchasing could happen elsewhere. Maybe the sellers initially will use more of our marketplace and our user interfaces, but also the selling can happen through the APIs. And I want to also mention the integrators, because that might be a bit confusing who are these, but we actually mean like mostly kind of technical service providers for the marketplace. The marketplace engine could utilize some of these third-party services. You know, think of emission calculators and routing engines, and for example, data providers that could provide trustworthiness data of the companies operating in the marketplace and things like that. So we can never do everything in such a large marketplace, such a large sort of a focus. So we hope to integrate third parties to kind of enable to run some parts of the marketplace, and we will also open the marketplace for these kind of third parties to kind of make money, revenue, providing services for the marketplace platform. Yes, and let's go to the next one. Thank you. Yes, so I'm highlighting a few things that are on the main focus on developing the marketplace. So the emissions awareness is the biggest one probably. So when you are buying cargo transport and other services, you will be made aware of the emissions, and then you will see like, okay, but what if I choose lower emission options or choices? How would the emissions then look like? And you can kind of a little bit compare, okay, if I use a diesel truck or biodiesel or gas trucking, what could be the effect? And you'll see it also after the RFQ round, after the kind of providers have provided the pricing quotes, you will see also the financial impact. Okay, if I use lower emissions energy choices, what's the monetary impact of these things? So this is a huge focus on the marketplace, and I already mentioned that it's all about services for now, and that's not an easy thing. It's more difficult to have a marketplace for services. Services can be a little bit messy, and there's disruptions and other things, but that's where we focus. And then this one is a big one also. So this intermodal, multimodal cargo transport. So meaning our main focus is in the trucking and trailers, the ocean-going vessels, and yes, also rail, train transport, and in some, let's say a bit of a stretch focus is also this kind of first mile, last mile cars or vans or something like that. But this is an important, and I will come back to this one. On the Wake.ai, we are AI company. Half of our developers work on this kind of AI or machine learning things. So we'll be using these capabilities from our sort of own capabilities, but also this is an area where third parties can help us, like predicting the cargo arrival to sort of waypoints and final, let's say, unloading location, but also predicting maybe disruptions. We might be able to predict that due to weather or some other aspects, the delivery will be disrupted in some way. And the AI, we might make these kind of suggestions. We might suggest, let's say, cargo routes or this kind of options for the buyers, and but always the human is making the decision. So what I'm trying to say that there might be a little bit of this couple of scenarios are provided for you. There's choices, and this is we made some choices for you. How does it look like, or do you want to modify them? And the open API platform I mentioned, very important from the beginning. So opening up the platform for others to develop, to integrate, and provide technical services. And this powerful developer experience is that, if you have APIs, you need to have proper, like a developer portal and documentation, examples, ways to quickly get going, test the APIs, but we will also have like a business partner focus there also, that if you want to be sort of part of the marketplace and generating revenue, how would that look like? Sort of a developer and business partner portal, and I'll come back to that. And yeah, the neutral operator is very important. There's been, for example, a couple of huge cargo transport marketplaces done by companies like IBM, big companies, and they pretty much failed because they have been a bit of a partial companies and not sort of so neutral. I think the next one is, so I mentioned we do have a marketplace for maritime port services, and I wanted to give you a bit of a feeling on that. So there's a short video, next one. So let's look at that one. Yes, it should start, but can you click on it? Let's see if it starts. Yes, thank you. Okay, that's the video. It's a bit of a fast run through the existing marketplace, and remember that the big thing is that now we will support the cargo transport services for those trains, trucks, trailers, and ocean-going vessels, and then the big part was the emissions awareness, and then that they will immediately opening up the marketplace through APIs. But hey, I'll come back to now to 3 items, and then I'm done. So if you go to the next one, thank you. So we do have this developer and business partner portal. We're already building it and creating content, and it has also this kind of a discussion forum in it. So there's information for business partners, developers. Both can be also discuss their own topics in a discussion forum, and then get for the developers get an API key and start testing the APIs immediately. So this is what we are now building and sort of preparing also for the partners in the project, that they see that how they can integrate their ideas and solutions to the marketplace. So a big thing in the ADMIRAL project. Yeah, next one, please. And a little bit of an example of some design aspects. So I mentioned that there is this, when you are buying, you are aware of the emissions, and okay, these are of course kind of emission predictions at that time, but when you are purchasing, you can see the emissions impact, and you can do choices, you can request different equipment of these different energy types to be used. And we are using the ISO 14083 and the CLEC framework, and this is something we want to have, let's say, in a very sort of user-friendly way, quite in a simple way, show the impact of different choices, and including also then the monetary impact. Yes, and this will sort of go through the whole process. Once the cargo transport has been completed, you will get a final prediction of the emissions. And sometimes if this cargo transport equipment can provide data, so we will have APIs to ingest, to input, for example, tracking emissions from sensors. So then it's not a prediction, more of a calculation based on real data. Okay, and the last one. The next one, thank you. So I'm highlighting here, this is a bit of a hard to see screenshot, but this is about this routing, and we will have routing for ocean-going vessels. That's what Awake does, but we'll use a third party for truck on the land side, truck routing, and it will understand the truck aspects and things and restrictions, and you can affect a bit those. You could say, okay, I'm transporting dangerous cargo, then the route will change. You cannot probably go into the tunnels and things like that. And for the trains, there was an earlier question about trains. So train routing is almost impossible, especially if you go through them sort of from country to country, but so we'll support kind of like a fixed routes in the beginning. So you can, as a seller, you can specify this is a train route. Will the origin and destination. You can provide waypoints, and you can of course provide like a schedules and what cargo is. Can be carried and things like that, but it's not a free-flowing routing. It's based on this given fixed route. But that's and this is what we will pilot and test in Portugal, from Port of Sines towards Madrid in Spain, of course. But it's not always required that you go to this level of detail. Sometimes it's fine if you just, as a buyer of cargo transport services, you just specify, hey, here is my loading location, the origin, and here is my destination, and I want, let's say, somewhat lower emissions, and then it's the route is a little bit irrelevant in this case for this buyer, but sometimes the buyers really want to specify it. And remember, the buyers can also be freight forwarders, and then they tend to want to specify better the route and the companies used. Hey, that's it from me. Thank you. If you want to contact me, it's fine. So it's Simo@awake.ai. So it's fine to contact me about anything.